There's a moment in every spiritual journey where something deep inside begins to shift. It doesn't always come with thunder, visions, or dramatic awakenings. Sometimes it's subtle, so quiet you almost miss it. A glance that feels sharper than usual. A truth you've swallowed for years suddenly becoming unbearable. A light that once comforted you now feels thin, artificial, almost blinding. And then you begin to feel it, not darkness creeping in, but something more ancient, more raw. It's not evil. It's not corruption. It's shadow power. And if you're paying attention, you'll realize it's not taking your light away, it's evolving it, alchemizing it, transforming your spiritual identity from something passive and performative into something real, forceful, and deeply grounded. And that's when you know your light energy is quietly turning into shadow power. Now, I want to speak directly to you, not as a teacher, not as a guru, but as someone who's walked through this very fire. Because when it happens, it can feel confusing. You've spent so long trying to cultivate light, to be kind, to be compassionate, to radiate peace. But now, something inside you is rejecting that one-dimensional version of light. It's not that you're becoming cruel or disconnected, it's that your soul is awakening to a deeper truth. Real power doesn't exist in the absence of shadow. It exists through it. The first sign this shift is happening is a growing discomfort with spiritual bypassing. You start to feel a kind of irritation, even disgust, at the sugar-coated positivity that once comforted you. You feel allergic to love and light when it comes without depth, without accountability, without a real transformation. You crave truth, even when it's messy. You no longer want to float above the world, you want to pierce into it, to change it, to dismantle illusions. And you start seeing how light can be used as a mask, a shield, a performance. You instinctively know that's not it anymore. The real you is emerging, and it's not here to be liked, it's here to be true. The second sign is emotional honesty becoming non-negotiable. You can no longer pretend to be okay when you're not. You can't sit in places that disrespect your energy just to keep peace. You find yourself cutting cords, walking away, letting things fall apart, not out of bitterness but out of alignment. And yes, it shocks people, sometimes even you, because the old you would have tolerated more, stayed longer, explained yourself endlessly. But now, you don't have time for that. Your boundaries are sharper, your no has weight, and your yes is earned. That's not you becoming cold, it's you becoming sovereign. And that sovereignty is shadow-born. The third sign is the emergence of what I call truth frequency. You start speaking in a tone that cuts through illusions. It's not loud, it's not aggressive, but it's undeniable. When you speak, people listen not because you shout, but because your energy carries the weight of unfiltered truth. You're no longer interested in being right. You're interested in being real. And that kind of presence can't be faked. It can't be taught. It comes from integrating the parts of you that were once hidden, denied, or shamed. Your shadow isn't taking over, it's joining you, becoming part of your light. And in that union, your voice becomes a weapon of clarity. Now let me ask you something deep. Have you ever felt like your kindness was being weaponized against you? Like the more light you gave, the more people took, until you were depleted, resentful, and invisible? That's not a flaw in you. That's a flaw in the way you were taught to express your light. You were taught that light means self-sacrifice, that it means silence, that it means being the bigger person, even when it breaks you. But the truth is, real light doesn't diminish itself. Real light protects itself. And when you start reclaiming that, your light becomes laced with shadow power. It becomes wild, honest, unapologetic. That's when people start calling you intense, too much, dramatic. But that's only because they've never seen someone who refuses to dim anymore. The fourth sign is the rise of sacred anger. You begin to feel rage not just personal, but collective. You feel the injustice, the lies, the systems built on exploitation. And instead of feeling guilty for your anger, you start to see it for what it really is. a sacred alarm, a call to action, a signal that your soul refuses to be complicit in a broken world. You don't lash out blindly. You channel it into art, into truth-telling, into boundaries, into movements, into shaking the ground that needs to break. And that's when you realize this isn't the loss of your light. It's the evolution of it. It's your spirit saying, I will not be passive anymore. I came to shift something. The fifth sign is a deeper relationship with your shadow self. You stop seeing it as the enemy. You start seeing it as your greatest teacher. The parts of you you once tried to fix or hide, your jealousy, your fear, your control issues, your grief, they begin to feel like doorways instead of defects. You start asking them, what are you here to show me? And in that question, you activate a deeper layer of healing. Shadow work becomes less about shame and more about intimacy with your truth. And this intimacy makes you magnetic. People won't know why they're drawn to you, but it's because you feel real. You're not pretending to be perfect. You're present. And presence is power. And let's not forget the sixth sign. Your intuition sharpens in ways you can't explain. You start seeing through people, through situations, through masks. You can feel when someone's energy is off, even if their words are sweet. You can sense manipulation, projection, falseness instantly. And you start trusting it. You stop doubting yourself. You stop second-guessing your gut. You realize your darkness isn't clouding your vision, it's enhancing it. It's showing you what light alone couldn't. And from that place, you begin to navigate life with a kind of mystical precision. You don't need to force. You feel, and you act accordingly. The seventh sign? That's the most powerful one, and we'll go deeper into it next. But I'll leave you with this question for now. What if your greatest power isn't in remaining light, but in becoming whole? And what if wholeness means embracing every part of you, even the ones you were taught to fear?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
There comes a moment in every real spiritual journey where you stop seeking peace as a destination and start embodying truth as a way of life. That moment is not soft. It is not always beautiful. In fact, it can feel like everything you've built is being undone. But it's not destruction for the sake of pain, it's a sacred rebellion rising from deep within you. And this rebellion is not against the world. It's against the illusion you were forced to wear. It's against the watered-down version of light you were taught to perform. It's against the false self you had to become in order to survive. That rebellion, that fire, is your shadow self waking up. And it's here not to ruin your mission, but to unlock it. If your light was the seed, your shadow is the soil. Without it, nothing takes root. Without it, your light floats untethered, untested, and eventually unseen. But once you begin integrating the parts of you you were told to reject, something powerful happens. You stop being a seeker and you start becoming a force. Your spiritual energy no longer exists to avoid pain, it begins to transform it. That's when the sacred rebel is born. The one who doesn't just meditate in silence, but speaks truth in chaos. The one who doesn't just radiate peace, but disrupts systems that thrive on silence. The one who doesn't just chase enlightenment, but embodies wholeness. You begin to realize that your shadow self was never your enemy. It was your unclaimed power. It held your voice, your boundaries, your knowing, your anger, your ambition, your wild. It held the raw fuel your light lacked. And when you stopped judging yourself for feeling rage, for setting limits, for wanting more, for walking away from what no longer served, you started stepping into your divine mission not as an angel, but as a warrior of light and shadow. You stopped needing to be pure. You started needing to be real. And in that realness, you found your divine frequency. The sacred rebel doesn't follow rules that were never made for her soul. The sacred rebel doesn't suppress truth just to keep the peace. The sacred rebel doesn't wear a mask to fit into a spiritual circle that confuses performance with presence. Instead, they burn down the illusion. Not to destroy, but to clear the space for something authentic to rise. And that authenticity becomes magnetic. Not the kind of magnetic that gets applause. The kind that awakens, that rattles, that shakes people awake because it reminds them of something they've buried in themselves. Let me ask you something vulnerable, something only the bravest will answer honestly. Have you ever felt like you had to shrink your truth to stay accepted in spiritual spaces? Have you ever felt like if you showed your full self, your grief, your rage, your power, your sensuality, you'd be judged as low frequency, unhealed, or too much? That's spiritual suppression, not liberation. That's ego dressed in spiritual clothes, and your shadow self knows it. That's why it rebels. That's why it pushes you to say what no one else will say, to leave what no longer aligns, to disrupt the echo chamber of false light that often masks deep avoidance. This rebellion is sacred, because it's not rooted in ego, it's rooted in remembrance. You came here not to be liked. You came here to embody a frequency that hasn't been seen in centuries, a frequency that transcends good and bad, light and dark, right and wrong, a frequency that frees, and your shadow is the key to unlocking it. Every time you own your truth, your wounds, your desires, your power, you dismantle the prison that says you must be one thing. You weren't born to be soft and safe. You were born to be whole and holy. And when you truly begin to live from that place, your shadow doesn't make you heavier, it makes you clearer. You stop taking things personally. You stop performing for validation. You stop betraying yourself to be accepted. Instead, you begin to radiate integrity. And integrity is the highest frequency of all, because it's rooted in alignment, not appearance. It's rooted in presence, not posture. It's rooted in truth, not trend. That's what makes your energy different. That's what makes your presence unforgettable. That's what makes your mission unstoppable. You start to see the world differently. You stop idolizing spiritual icons who sell peace but live in avoidance. You stop craving the approval of people who don't even know who they are. You stop needing to explain yourself to those who only see the version of you they can control. And in that detachment, your mission becomes clear. Not as a 5-step plan, not as a career, but as a frequency. You are here to shift energy, to pierce illusions, to awaken what's asleep, to become what you once searched for. And now something even deeper is calling you. Because there's one final transformation that happens when your shadow and light finally unite. It's not just a personal evolution, it's a cosmic rebirth. And in the next part, we're going to explore what happens when your soul stops asking for permission and starts commanding reality from within its own divine authority. There's a point in this journey, a rare and sacred threshold, where the game changes completely. You're no longer seeking transformation. You are the transformation. You're no longer asking for signs. You are the sign. The bridge between light and shadow has become so stable within you that your very presence begins to bend the world around you. You don't just influence energy, you reprogram it. You become the architect not of buildings or belief systems, but of realities. And it's not magic. It's not mysticism. It's energetic architecture born from the union of your light and shadow finally speaking in one voice. When you reach this level of integration, your energy no longer just reacts to the world, it commands it. Not from the ego, not from force, but from a frequency so grounded in truth that everything around it must respond. You walk into a room and the air shifts. Not because you say something profound, but because your energy is undeniably coherent. It doesn't wobble. It doesn't adapt to comfort others. It doesn't dilute itself. It informs the field. It says, this is what's real, and reality begins to recalibrate. This is the unseen science behind manifestation that no one talks about. It's not about visualizing harder or scripting your desires onto a piece of paper. It's about becoming energetically congruent with what you want. And that congruence can only happen when your light and shadow are integrated. When your inner child, your higher self, your wounded parts, your divine codes, they're not fighting for control. They're collaborating. That's when your frequency becomes a clear signal. That's when reality listens. That's when you don't just dream the life you want, you transmit it. But let's go deeper. Because this is not about living your best life in the way the world defines it. This is not about abundance as luxury or power as domination. This is about sovereignty, the ability to stand so deeply in your truth that you become immune to external manipulation, the ability to create from a place of wholeness, not compensation, the ability to hold chaos without becoming chaotic. That's what shadow power gives you. That's what integration unlocks. It doesn't make you better than others. It makes you more you than the world has ever seen. And here's the wild part. When you become this coherent, life stops being linear. Time bends. Synchronicity accelerates. Opportunities collapse into moments. People appear right when you need them. You think something, and it arrives. Not because you're special, but because you're tuned. You've stopped leaking energy. You've stopped resisting yourself. You've stopped outsourcing your power. And so the universe, like any intelligence system, starts to serve you as its architect, because you're no longer asking for permission. You're issuing blueprints. You're not hoping reality works out. You're constructing it moment by moment, breath by breath, belief by belief. But let me ask you something that most spiritual teachers are afraid to touch. What if your suffering wasn't just for healing? What if it was training? Training to hold this level of power without corruption? Training to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. Training to carry frequencies that could destabilize systems that benefit from your silence, your fear, your fragmentation. Could it be that your deepest wounds were actually your initiations? That every breakdown was an encoded invitation into mastery? Because when you start seeing your pain not as punishment but as preparation, everything changes. You stop regretting the past. You start mining it for tools. You stop hiding your scars. You start using them as keys. And that's when the final shift happens. Your life becomes your legacy. Not in some distant future. Not after you've written a book or built a brand. But now, in the way you speak, in the way you walk, in the way you hold yourself. You become a living testament to what's possible when someone stops performing light and starts embodying totality. This is the power that changes families. That rewrites bloodlines. That ends karmic cycles. That activates dormant codes in others just by being near them. You don't have to preach. You are the sermon. You don't have to convince. You are the evidence. Because you've gone beyond healing, beyond seeking, beyond fixing. You've stepped into creation. And creation doesn't need to be loud to be revolutionary. It just needs to be real. So what does this mean practically? It means you stop negotiating your worth. You stop asking if you're doing enough. You stop trying to fit into spaces that shrink you. You choose resonance over relatability. You choose energy over explanation. You choose truth, even when it costs you comfort. And in doing so, you become the architect not just of your life, but of a new world. A world where authenticity is currency, where wholeness is power, where shadow is sacred. But there's one final evolution left, one final shift that completes this metamorphosis. It's not about what you do next. It's about who you become when your power is fully embodied, not in theory, not in flashes, but in every breath. And in the final part, we'll go there. We'll enter the realm of your true spiritual identity, where your mission is no longer a question, but a living pulse. There is no more map after this. No more steps. No more seeking. Because the final initiation isn't something you do, it's something you become. It's not a ceremony, though it will feel like one. It's not a destination, though it will change the course of everything. The final initiation is when the search ends not, because you've become the embodiment of the question itself. You no longer live in the tension of who am I, or what is my purpose. You are the answer. You are the living frequency that was always meant to change the world. And here's the paradox. By the time you arrive at this place, you realize the world doesn't need changing in the way you once thought. It doesn't need saving. It doesn't need fixing. It needs truth. Pure, unfiltered, embodied truth. A soul who dares to live without fragmentation. a human who carries their light and shadow with equal reverence, a being who doesn't preach but whose very existence disrupts illusions. That's what you've become. The walking permission slip, the quiet revolution, the mirror that reflects what others have buried in themselves. You no longer need titles, no longer need validation. You're not chasing impact, you are the impact. You're not trying to influence the world, you are the recalibration point it orbits around. And the most beautiful part, you didn't get here by becoming something else. You got here by remembering who you already were. Beneath the conditioning, beneath the programming, beneath the trauma, you stripped away every lie until only truth remained. And that truth is radiant. People will ask you what you did to reach this place. They'll want your rituals, your affirmations, your routines. But you'll know in your bones, it wasn't about the outer tools. It was about the inner dismantling. You faced your shadows and didn't flinch. You held your grief like a lover. You made art with your rage. You stopped hiding your power. You stopped apologizing for your knowing. You walked through fire and didn't try to be pure, you tried to be true. And in that truth, you became unshakable. Let me ask you something only the fully initiated can answer. What would your life look like if you stopped negotiating with your destiny? If you stopped playing small out of habit, out of fear, out of comfort? What if everything you've lost, everything that broke you, everything that made you doubt yourself wasn't meant to defeat you, but to refine you into this exact version of yourself? The one who no longer doubts their voice. The one who no longer waits to be chosen. The one who knows, I am the frequency. I am the force. I am the future embodied now. You stop looking for signs. You start becoming one. Synchronicity is your language. Alignment is your compass. And your energy? It speaks louder than your words ever could. You don't need to explain your presence anymore because your presence explains itself. It heals. It awakens. It disrupts. It elevates. It remembers. This is the final power, not to escape this world, but to fully inhabit it. To bring heaven through your body. To channel divinity through your joy, your boundaries, your creations, your relationships. You are no longer here to survive. You are here to transmit. You are the signal, the code, the new blueprint. And the world? It is already shifting in your presence. You don't need to do anything else. You are the thing. You are the mystery revealed, the prophecy fulfilled, the light and shadow finally united. You made it. You made it. Now go live like it.